How's it going? Probably owe you some responses on a couple of emails.
Yeah, I would. Great, yeah. Nice weather.
Oh,
Yeah, no rain for 10 days. Mhm.
Buses and
I got the electric bus. Yeah.
Presentation.
One thing I said, I know about getting your buses out of Main Street fast. The westbound 34. So I was on one just last night. Took forever. First we had to wait to turn left. And then it doesn't seem to have a reduction or anything to. According to traffic. And then we get to Dangerfield.
Yeah.
I was surprised. Maybe 5 minutes to get from Bay A to Sunset to the stop. So I was thinking if the buses would use the slip lane, go south to Duke Street.
Download or upload the packet each one, or you do it live? Yeah, I realize you do it live. Like I upload it to my hard drive. Yeah, that's exactly. Oh, yeah.
That's right. I
Doesn't even have
I
that.
know there's a metro.
On the, I was on the
Station.
the dash website.
King Street there. But
It just
it
like
just takes
meditative, like
forever, 5
Yeah,
minutes.
it's just if you're gonna be.
There's actually moving
You're
with
shooting your phone.
Or Oak.
Stop on Brad.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's gonna be like an hour.
Yeah. But Hales and Harrison's in the time.
So it's like, I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
okay.
okay.
But
Especially with the rest of
yeah, big like the trade off. I'm like,
So they look at it. Or maybe that's a.
But you know,
I really could do.
the buses, the westbound buses stop at A and B. A
It's
for
not
the
like,
31 and B
yeah,
for the 30.
I'm not.
A is the closest one to King,
really
Texas, the closest one to the Sunset.
Right.
So.
Josh, when's the next
It's just
round
under
of
the bridge,
the national?
First stop to come to the day, so.
I
Whatever they
won't be
say.
in town.
So the international.
Get some, at least from the city.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
our driver says it's really a long
Place like
time.
Yeah. But he won it before, right?
Yeah, it's on the site. It's on the site.
He did 1 year.
So I said, I can't remember if it was him or if it was Lee. I missed the bus.
Yeah, I was there. Oh.
Sunset.
Because
Because all the time we took was the bus to get out of the bus.
Yeah, they're
Well, when I record things before.
Early June, I guess.
So are those 35?
Those
44 or 35?
And then I couldn't come that week because I was. And so. I was gonna make it.
Callahan used to be a problem too, but it's been fixed.
Yeah.
Because the right lane is for Russell Road and the left lane is for King Street.
Yeah.
And so.
Test.
Less congestion on Callahan than they was a year ago.
Test.
Yeah. Always coming up with crazy ideas. They're usually pretty good.
Never mind, I didn't count. There's a bunch. Yeah,
Well, I never
I didn't.
thought it would be a problem with having a lot of experience going through this.
So.
Hi, Steve. Are you able to hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you and hopefully you can hear me.
We sure can. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
All as well.
Yeah.
Traffic was bad.
I don't know about that.
I know.
I'll make the
30 minutes. Well, I know the West States does for me. One thing so bad. but everything just-
Oh, I knew, yeah, so I know.
But I'm gonna. I'm going to litigate. Oh, they'll know. Wait. Oh, I mean, they'll care about where I'm going.
Oh, I mean, just to go after, you know, an employee who's on administrative, you know, who's on.
Yeah, but no. I mean, for other people, yes. For an immigration lawyer, that's it.
Yeah.
I printed these out.
Oh, the phones, oh, thank you. Okay.
And Cheryl Ann Colton, she's with the Alexandria.
I saw her outside.
Yeah, she's gonna speak first and then.
Okay.
So I was just like, I mean, it was like, what is the?
You got it.
So like, it was literally like an hour before we started. I was like, okay. Yeah.
Some people just
No, there. Cutting is easier than having.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't blame it. Yeah. Neighbors like this.
All of this is getting replaced. So
Oh,
the
okay.
chairs are gone.
Okay, no, I thank you for your hospitality.
We literally just processed the PO.
Okay.
And the furniture house and just tariffs. Furniture is being canceled. So
They're postponing a lot of them, 90 days, I think.
yeah, but we're gonna, it's all.
No,
gonna
that
be-
makes sense.
It's all gonna be done, because these are, they're falling apart on us. If you could just remind everybody to unmute
Okay.
if they're speaking, because otherwise the audience on the line won't hear.
I have a couple of questions that after the call, not big stuff. One was, do you have the 103, 104, right? I saw a note about it on the agenda, but I didn't see the numbers for that particular route. I just mainly want to know if it is now exceeded, or I guess through the March numbers, what you were carrying previously. If you guys don't have a follow up with it, because I think we wanted to know.
I don't think we have official numbers yet.
Oh, for March? Oh,
No, because it takes a little while for the data to process and
Okay.
that's to do validation and all that stuff. So we don't usually get the numbers.
okay, okay. So we only have, so we still only have, because we had February numbers last month, or at least they were unofficial.
We may have.
Okay, well, you guys might have pulled those for the meeting last month, because we were saying it was robust, but hadn't exceeded the.
Yeah, I don't know, but Martin is here to.
I'll ask the question about this. And then I saw that for the commuter, I saw Bob did a letter on behalf of Park Fairfax. Are we less concerned about where we're gonna, I saw that there was some appeal to Ryder the project. Didn't seem like we were pushing as hard as we did the last cycle, so we feel pretty good. The commuter connection.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay.
How long, 35?
35 and 36, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because
There's
last cycle
actually
we
a lot
had a lot
there's
of.
a lot of community already.
Okay.
From down.
Okay, so that's good. I mean, I saw the appeal just that I get on the general listserv, but I remember last year we really talked a lot about.
Well, we were at Jeopardy, right now, we're already ranked.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, staff have already put us in.
Oh, okay. So last year was that we had ranked lower? Okay. Lower last cycle.
Yeah, there were really projects.
Okay.
We don't have that, that's not the case this year, there's just one through this. But we still have people waiting.
Okay, okay. Yeah. Do we need to do a letter? I mean, I guess we did with the original application.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Oh, the she version. Yeah, she did. Okay. I meant to write it back. I wrote it back last night, but hopefully I didn't send it.
Yeah, and she was like you about a couple other things, but anyway, I
Yeah.
wanna make sure she.
Yeah, she did. I'll make sure my response.
Okay. Sounds good.
That's good. I need any business.
I wrote her back last night. So. Well, I did it right before I went to bed, so I was hoping, did I not hit send on it, but I didn't. So, but.
You know. Yeah, we'll do.
Good. I don't remember which one's the power button on this. Oh, it's Which one's the power button?
It's charged up. Here we go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right there. That looks like.
Oh, it's on this.
Yeah,
Okay,
volume's over
that's
there,
volume.
too.
Okay. Okay. It's there.
Yeah.
My first Apple product, so that's why.
Phone too?
No, just this.
Oh.
I've never had an Apple 5, had an Android. I've always had an Android. So.
Good for you. If you want to ride home.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. If you're going my way.
You know what? Even if I were.
Oh, well, Matt, you're.
Times of-
They are. They are. This is our first week back in office, so it's been challenging.
We could.
Oh, because I'm back.
Oh,
I mean, I've been on VRE. And it's
because
not yet. They don't have enough space, and they were said everybody gets a desk. So
okay, that's right.
we need 200 people to quit till we have it. Then we can be in 5 days a week. So.
This is brutal.
They do. I mean, reasonable accommodations are still a thing.
Oh, it's well, it's spring. Yeah. When my spring flowers, I got first call.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, my God. That's great. Yeah. My dad was like. Yeah. Oh, just, they live in yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to get into Boardable.
You go sign. Oh, yeah. Yeah. What are you doing now?
Looks like they're still setting up for. Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? Welcome to the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors meeting for April. We know that we don't have a quorum yet, but I'll ask the secretary to call the roll.
Chair Kaplan.
Here.
Vice Chair Kleist.
Here virtually.
Harish Gudger. Matt Harris.
Here.
Ravi Kapal.
Almost here. Pulling up now.
Let's count it.
Jesse O'Connell. Hillary Orr.
Jesse's in the car with me, so same.
Hillary Orr. Kirsten Phelps here. Lori Gates. Ajayasha Thomas. Arthur Wicks. Chair Kaplan, you do not have a quorum.
Okay. Well, we want to thank those who are here from the Office of the Arts representing some wonderful poetry, and I'm glad we have some visually that's up at the table. Just out of respect for your time, we wanted to go ahead and introduce Cheryl-Ann Colton from the Office of the Arts and allow her to introduce this wonderful program. This collaboration has been going on for over a decade. Between Dash and
Can you believe that? It's been over a decade. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'll just share the poetry. This is National Poetry Month. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Cheryl-Ann Colton, and I am the Regional Program Director with Cultural Resources for the Office of the Arts, which is embedded within the Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Activities. We started this partnership, this collaboration 11 years ago, and it stuck because we like it so much. We like it, you like it, and I think your writers like it too. Not to mention our poets. You know, they love submitting, you know, their poetry. So what's going to happen tonight is each of the poets will come up, they introduce themselves, and then they'll read their poetry. There are a couple of poets who could not make it today, so we have fill-ins, and the poets will tell you who they're filling in for. So again, thank you for this, and let's go on to the year 12, which will be the greatest and the best. So thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Zaina Azam, and I am the Poet Laureate of the City of Alexandria for another 21 days. My 3-year term ends at the end of April, and it has been such an honor and such a pleasure to be in this position. And I'm delighted we've selected a new Poet Laureate. She and I overlap this month, so you have 2 Poets Laureate in April. And you'll be meeting her soon. This is my 3rd year coming to speak to you, and it's always so much fun. Thank you for holding this this poetry contest with us. So I'm going to read my own poem, and then I'll read the poem of somebody who cannot make it. So my poem is "A Community as We Ride." The bus gathers us, a living room for strangers. Our eyes meet, your face hardened. A mother and child enter, the baby coos, and you smile. This tenderness, a surprise. Thank you. And I'll just mention that it is challenging to write these poems because they're only 30 words. And so you really have to subscribe to this economy of words, so really distill what you want to say. So this poem is by Deb Antonini, and the title of hers is Connections on the Move. Buses hum through city streets where strangers meet, where neighbors greet. From stop to stop, our paths align, connected by each shared line. In Alexandria, we all shine. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alex Kerrigan. This is my second year being a part of Dashing Words in Motion. I'm very pleased to be back. This is my poem, Requests. I help an old man load his double bass onto the bus. He asks if I have any requests for his set list that night. I recommend Fever. He accepts. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting us. It's really great to be here with these other wonderful writers. I love the poems this year. My name is Jennifer Veach, and I'm going to be reading a couple poems. Before I do, as I think as Zaina said, writing within these constraints is hard. And here's a metaphor I was thinking on my way here. A poem is like a bus. A poem is like a bus because they both have constraints. A bus has the fuel it uses, the passengers in it, right? The lanes it has to drive through. A poem, in this case, has requirements as well. A title, 30 words or less. A topic, transportation. A context, community. So constraints, and they lead to incredible diversity of creativity, which I thought was wonderful. The poems are all so different. So I'm going to read a poem first by one of our other poets, Caitlin Fitzsimmons' poem. It's titled Hello. Hello. Difference in speech, gait, eyesight, appearance, weight, with wheels, service animal, prosthetic, or you can't see my disability on trolley or bus. Let's smile, nod, hello. We are all us. I have to say I had an assist when I wrote my poem because when you all asked us to do this, we recently had a snow that day. And when I went out, there was nothing on the road except for the dash bus. After the snow. After the snow, the sky sits low over our shoulders. We hunch slow out of the house, stumble crunch down the sidewalk and watch the bus glide up the avenue. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm fairly new to the community. I moved here back in August. My name is Sean Morrissey. I'm currently in AmeriCorps Vista working for Housing Alexandria. This was a fun opportunity to kind of, just be creative. I take the bus to work 3 times a week and wherever else I go to. And I actually didn't learn or realize that there was a 30-word limit until the day it was due. Literally an hour or two. I looked at the website. I was like, oh, I'm gonna turn in my poems, and then I realized, oh, I have to cut 80% of all of them. So it was a good exercise. I enjoyed it, and so my poem is called "Stop Requested." Stop Requested by Sean Morrissey. Stop requested, the robotic voice intones. Life never stops moving. Sometimes we need a stop to sit still and let the world take us where we need to go. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? My name is C. Alexandria Bernard Thomas, and this is my first year being in the Dashing Words, and I'm very excited and proud of the opportunity. So thank you so much. I am going to be reading my poem, I Carry the City Forward. And like Sean, I found at the last minute 30 words. I'm like, oh, okay. And had to cut down 90% of my poem to get to what we have. So I Carry the City Forward by C. Alexandria Bernard Thomas. A turn for dreamers, chasing dawn's promise. A hum for builders with hands stained with by labor's grit. A roll for wanderers seeking comfort in motion. I carry the city forward. Thank you.
Hello, sorry I was late. I drove, which I hate. My name is Kate. I am also new to Alexandria. We moved to Delray in July. I'm normally an essayist. My work has been in the New York Times and the Washington Post. So I was really excited to see this poetry contest because I've moved into poetry lately. We do ride the bus a lot in Delray. My kids walk to school. We have tried to consolidate down to one car. It's working great, as you can see. This is called Bus Ride with My Daughter. My daughter's feet dangle from the seat, her gaze outside, sleek city bustling by. Too small to walk Alexandria edge to edge. Instead, this bus makes our journey possible. Thank you.
That was a fun. Well, I want to, can we give another round of applause? Something we look forward to every year because it's a collaboration. It's something our writers enjoy, but it also sets a really wonderful tone for our board meetings. So we really appreciate all of you being here and sharing your creativity with us.
If you'd like to listen to some more poetry on the 24th of April, there's a poem in your pocket. You can bring a poem, you can read it, and that's going to be at the Athenaeum beginning at 6:30. But this is a poetry month, so we're doing lots of poetry.
You're welcome to stay if you want. Otherwise, we understand if you have other places to be, but we appreciate you coming out this evening. We now have a quorum. So we have a public hearing on the Alexandria Transit Strategic Plan. And I'll just ask staff if there's any preliminary comments you want to make or presentation, or if we should go into the kind of the hearing guidelines and call speakers.
I don't think we have any particular presentation this evening, but we have Martin here that can answer questions after public comment if you would like.
Okay, very good. So for anyone who's here to speak during public comment, when we have a public hearing, we only have one public comment period. And so that will cover the hearing. And so our public comment policy applies with some modifications. So I'll go ahead and read our customary statement. We are about to convene into a public hearing. All dashboard meetings include a public comment period or a public hearing at the beginning of the meeting, as we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our writers and community members. The board is here to listen. However, please keep in mind that public comment is not designed to be a discussion. Accordingly, please do not expect the board to respond to your questions or concerns tonight. We take any concerns and questions seriously and need sufficient time to process and research any issues if need be. Board members will respond to your questions and concerns at a future meeting or have the proper staff get it back to you at the appropriate time. Please note that personnel matters are not a part of public comment or public hearing. However, please know we take any personnel questions seriously. You're asked to contact Dash administration with any such concerns. We ask that all speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect for any divergent views that others possess. Further, we ask that speakers please address their comments to the board directly rather than the audience. The board will take pre-registered speakers first, and I will invite others who wish to speak who may not have pre-registered. For future board meetings, you may pre-register on the website dashbus.com on the board of directors page. I will now call the first speaker. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes for your comments. If you're speaking on behalf of a neighborhood civic association or unit owners association, please identify yourself accordingly if you would like to be recognized for 5 minutes. So I'll ask if we have any speakers pre-registered.
We had one registered online, Linda Edwards.
Linda Edwards, if you're online, is she able to, do we see her?
I do not see a name by the name Linda Edwards online. I do see one hand up though.
Okay. So I'll ask first if there are any speakers in the room who want to be recognized that didn't pre-register. If not, then we will go to our speaker online who'd like to be recognized.
Okay, that's going to be Jim Durham, and I've just unmuted him.
Good evening, Jim.
Good evening, Chair Kaplan, board members, and Mr. Josh Baker. I serve as the vice chair of the Dash Advisory Committee, but the only comment I'll make in that capacity is to thank Mr. Baker for sharing his time and his comments and insights at our last meeting. The rest of my comments, I speak as somebody, as a resident who was part of the original stakeholder advisory group for the Alexandria Transit Vision Plan. And I have worked, as many of you know, to try to see, help, push whatever I can do to get that transit vision plan implemented. And my comment tonight is not so much on the on the strategic plan, but for your fall work session with council, something to think about in advance. My understanding from Josh at our DAC meeting is that, primary focus, as it should be, is on the what is often referred to as state of good repair, but I also view that as recapitalization of the buses as they wear out, and that's a huge question that needs to be addressed. But in parallel with that, because that's maintaining service, and that's always your first priority. But please consider and maybe debate in advance, if it's not going to be part of the fall work session, what's it going to take to get the 2030 plan? My comment at the council last night was, at the current rate of the proposed $240,000 this year, it will take 8 years from now to reach the 2022 plan. And so I think some fiscal reality to the future plan would be useful for the board's discussion at some point, and possibly for discussion with council as they just to talk about next year's budget. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for you to serve on the board. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you for all that you do with the Dash Advisory Committee. I know you and the chair have been very busy in terms of advocacy letters to council. Both of you testified at the budget public hearing in March, and then I saw the letter that the DAC prepared, which I think really helps to strike the right tone in terms of what we need in terms of resources this year. And I appreciate your comments as we shape the work session for the fall with council.
Thank you.
Speaking of the chair, Nathaniel Cartagena is on and has his hand raised to speak as well. So I should be able to unmute now, Nathaniel.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yes.
I wanted to visit in person today, but wasn't possible. I wanted to also likewise speak on a personal matter, but before doing so, I wanted to thank the ATC board for sharing their letters and thoughts in advance. That really expedited our ability and augmented our ability to advocate on behalf of Dash. So I wanted to thank you for that collaboration. In terms of the strategic plan, I just wanted to comment. I'm very enthusiastic about the idea of extending line 34. One piece though, I've lived in Alexandria just under 10 years, and I've always wondered about this intersection coming out of the Potomac Yard shopping mall onto Reed. I always assumed that the reason for that sort of weird intersection with sort of obstacles in the middle of it was to reduce the amount of traffic on Reed. There are many kids who go to school at Cora Kelly, as well as around the city right there on that block. And so I just wanted to raise the visibility and make sure we understand on what I think is a very good and equitable extension and future part of our strategic plan, that we also understand the impact to the safety and changes of opening that intersection and increasing traffic there. So those are just my public remarks, but again, I wanted to thank the ATC board for their support helping with our advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And also thank you for the letter and for the testimony. And I, expect that we will continue to collaborate as we did this year to make sure that you all have all the information we do in terms of our positions to help shape the budget proposal. And thank you for your comments as we will be reviewing the concept for the line 34 extension as part of the transit strategic plan. That's helpful to know, and a question that we'll certainly ask as we move through that. Any other speakers?
I do not see any in our hands.
All right. Go ahead and close the public hearing. All right, so chair's report. First, I want to congratulate all of you who applied for reappointment were reappointed. So it was very tough. We watched the meeting. They were council was debating and hawing. Ajayesha attended in person. It was very nice to have her there. And I know a couple of you were watching online. Since and Kendall Taylor had shared this with the whole board, but since the last time we were together, Kendall resigned from the board in anticipation of her retirement from the city, which I know is coming shortly. The city manager, you may have heard Beth call a different name today, and that's because we have a new chief financial officer or designee or finance designee of the city manager, and her name is Laura Gates. She's a deputy director in that department. I have actually not met her before, and so I don't know if we've had any engagement with her yet, Josh, in terms of inviting her over to.
No, we have an orientation scheduled later this month.
Okay.
And Beth did confirm that she would be at the May meeting. I believe she may be out of town right now. I saw an out of office.
Okay. Well, and I do just want to take a moment. Kendall's not here with us tonight, but to thank her for her work on the board. About 10 years ago, we got city designee staff, the 3 positions on the board. And one of the things as just a community member that I have really enjoyed is just getting to see what wonderful professionals we have who give so much of themselves to help run the city. And Kendall certainly is no exception to that. And I learned a lot from her about municipal finance, and that she explained in a very kind of understandable way. She had a very good sense of humor as well. And a couple of times I had to reach out to her as we're dealing with sort of city management issues and to get her opinion as a senior city official. And she always was very generous with her time and gave me good advice. So I will miss her, but I know all of us wish Kendall the best in retirement. So. The other main takeaway, there was some really good engagement with council and we had a lot to celebrate, but the main takeaway, and you heard our 2 speakers during public comment reference the work session that's going to happen in the fall. So this was an idea as Josh was engaging with the mayor and some of the members of council of looking at some of the really significant, especially on the capital side, lift that we have, because we don't have enough. We have a goal of being all electric. We need to start buying mostly and then all electric buses, and we don't have funding for those. We don't have enough funding in the CIP to actually cover state of good repair, just buying diesel buses as well. And so knowing that that wasn't an issue for this year's CIP, because we have funds and we're waiting actually for order of buses that were purchased also with federal money and then other sources as well. But we have supply chain issues. We have the potential for tariffs. We have the need to procure buses. We have changes in federal policy. And so all of that is going to need to play out in terms of what is the future of the fleet for Dash. And so the mayor had suggested, well, maybe that's something we could address in the stockholders meeting. That's a huge conversation. So we said, no, maybe we could do a work session in the fall. And the mayor and council members were very supportive of that. I would add into that, and Jim mentioned this in his comments, the operating needs that we have, and talking with Josh. We have a number of council members now who were not involved in putting together the ATV that became the new Dash network. And so perhaps for them to understand both kind of what's left there and then what the full plan, which we start implementing new segments as early as this next year's budget that come in that full implementation, kind of what's there, and reordering and reprioritizing, because a lot of this was sort of designed in we finished work on the ATV in calendar year 2019. So it's really kind of understanding what's left and what makes sense, especially as people are moving around the city differently than we did even a year or 2 ago. So I'm really glad that we're going to have this opportunity. It'll probably be in the early fall. Josh, do you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I think you encompassed it quite well. This did come out of the budget work session, which was a really great conversation with council. I think they're very engaged with what Dash has going on and are very interested in making sure that we're supported. And so this is a great opportunity to really have that conversation in a forum where what I envision would give much more time and involve several staff presentations, dialogue between the board and the council, and ideally solve for some questions and priorities, and make decisions right then and there, as opposed to the process now where it's kind of slowly back and forth and ultimately only happens at the stockholders meeting, which is always very compressed. So we'd be interested as we plan this to hear from you as to things that you think are very important that are included in that work. We would have an outline for you. I mentioned to Chair Kaplan that we would draft that here later this spring, early summer, and then really make sure that we have content that helps to really engage the conversation. And certainly I would imagine Martin will speak a lot since most of the content is his, but and then as far as the format and forum, we could do it here. We could do it if the facilities would accommodate it, potentially also at the Del Pepper Center. So we'll just need to evaluate what the technology options are and making sure, since it would be a public meeting of both bodies together, seemingly for a longer period of time.
Would that be the full council or a?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can we do it downstairs?
In the garage. Whoa.
Make it real.
Yeah. I'm not sure these mics extend that far. We'll have to talk to the IT folks. But I mean, something like a tour, a conversation about the building, we could build in a lot of different factors. It's going to be contingent upon the amount of time we have carved out. And I think, did you already mention this in your comments, that the thinking was that it would replace your board meeting and that we would try to offer maximum flexibility on our end and see if we can get on their calendar early and then lock that date in and then just flex our meeting and our time and location based on them.
And it's really, I mean, I've lived in the city over 20 years and been kind of following Dash for most of that time. I mean, this is the first time since I've lived here that council and the board of Dash have done a joint work session. And it's, other than the stockholders meetings, it's been probably over 10 years since even the general manager of Dash did a work session with council. So I think it's going to be really interesting to kind of see that dialogue, or two groups sort of work through these problems together collaboratively. It's you know, what I think needs to be done is an excellent suggestion for tackling this. And, you know, as Josh said, to make sure you all have a lot of buy-in in terms of how we set the agenda, and also want to make sure that we're not hearing things that are going to be a surprise to us as well, that, you know, we want to understand kind of what the position is and what, you know, the resources are that and recommendations that we're gonna make. So
hopefully the dust will have settled somewhat by the fall too. We'll know more, but
yeah.
I don't know what we'll be dealing with.
Also coming out of the stockholders meeting, there was a request from Councilman McPike, who's one of the members of the Transportation Commission, that we work a little harder to fill our seat. And so I shared what Hillary had brought up at the last meeting, and after, I think, consultation with the Transportation Commission's leadership about expanding the pool potentially of Dash, of who we could appoint. And you know, said that we were generally very supportive of that. And Hillary has talked to the city clerk about ordinance change that would be necessary, basically to allow it to be a member of our board or a designee of our board. So the appointing authority would still remain with us. Council then has to ratify who we appoint, but we would basically be able to name a member of the DAC or other constituent.
So at the last meeting, Arish and I sort of suggested we'd be willing to alternate. Is that off the table, just so I can plan my life?
Well, I appreciate your offer, I guess, but maybe I had thought that your offer meant like if we didn't find anyone else, but if you two want to be the first, I mean, it is preferable to have a board member on there, but I think we would be able to find willing volunteers if we broaden the.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure alternating dilutes the ability of us. It would be better to have a single dedicated person. So if you think that outweighs
someone from outside representing us, then, I would just yield.
Well, I think we should still do the ordinance change, because that way, if then we get to a point we want to do it, it's good to have it in place. And then we can have, I guess I'll yield to Hillary to find out kind of process from here. We exchanged an email, but maybe there's more in terms of what would happen next.
Yeah, thanks, David. We're still looking into this to see what the final process would be. I think the Transportation Commission is ultimately going to have to make a recommendation, and then we would have to go to City Council for their approval, because this is written into the code for the Transportation Commission. I think likely the wording of a dashboard member or designee is probably going to work. I don't know, I think having rotating folks is not ideal, because the council does have to approve one person as the rep. And of course, if that rep can't make it and Dash wants to send another person to the meeting to report back, that's completely fine. I don't think they'd be a voting member. So that's just something we'd have to work out amongst ourselves in terms of what is the kind of back and forth and interplay between this board and that commission. But I think having consistency is probably helpful. But I will continue to follow up with the Transportation Commission and report back.
Okay, so we're in a holding pattern for now. Would it, if my colleagues are interested in, I know Arish, you went to one of the transportation, Matt, I don't know that you've gone as a committee member.
I've been.
Oh, you've been, okay. I didn't know if you'd represented us.
No.
Oh, okay. But perhaps it sounds like that may not get to council for a few months. Is that fair? Because it sounds like there's several steps still to go through. Would it be helpful to have, if my colleagues are willing to attend some Transportation Commission meetings, to just have them do that at least in the interim?
Sure. It's always helpful, and they're open to the public.
Okay, well, maybe that's something we can see if you guys want to at least cover that through the coming months. I know when they did they had a presentation on the WMATA Next Bus that's now being implemented back in the summer, and I had watched that because there were comments about things that Dash should do. And I mean, one of the members was like, "Well, we need a Dash. This is when we really need a Dash rep." And so it kind of hit home for me. They really want us to participate in their meetings.
Do they meet year round, or do they take the summer off?
Hillary's gonna answer.
Summer's off. Yep. They meet in June, but they don't meet in July and August, and we
I think it was
often
the
cancel a September
meeting I was
meeting.
watching.
I can't do odd months. I can do even months.
I think for the time being, I mean, I can certainly try to attend meetings, and I can just let you know if I can't make it or something like that. So.
Well, as Hillary said, anyone can be in the room, but it would be helpful, I think, to have someone representing our board, and it just shows the community also that we're invested in the places where we need to be. But I think long term we'll have a good solution by opening up to a broader cross section of people, and also will make, I think, the DAC potentially more attractive too, because people will be able to use that potentially to sit on a city board or commission and get some visibility in the community. I think that covers the stockholders meeting. You can watch it on video. It's the beginning of the second legislative meeting in March. There was also a really good presentation that I watched later on about that COG and the Northern Virginia Regional Commission did on basically trends in the federal workplace and what that means for this region. I mean, they have a lot of great economic forecasting, kind of doomsday forecasting, but it was a really, really important presentation. It sounds like they're going to all the local governments, but certainly that's going to have an impact on how people move around the city too. So I listened to it that weekend. It was a really good use of time. I'll yield to Hillary. Oh, one more. Well, I'll yield to you, and then I have one other item.
Did you want to skip your nominating committee?
Well, that's what I was going to come back to, but do you want to speak first, or?
I can, or you can keep going.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just because I'd already recognized you, I thought it'd be rude to take it back. I apologize.
That's okay. You may take it back.
As we've now had the stockholders meeting, the bylaws require it. We reorganize as a board, and that means electing officers of the ATC as the corporation and of the board. So we appoint a 2-member nominating committee to recommend a slate of officers. For the corporation, our bylaws actually specify incumbents of specific positions. So it's sort of just filling in the name of who's there now if there's been any changes. But for the board, you'll need to select a vice chair and a chair. And as Steve, who has been the vice chair, is leaving the board in June. So we would the very least need to replace him. Hillary's already volunteered to be one member of the nominating committee, so we're going to take her volunteering, and we just need a second person to do this with her.
I'd volunteer for it.
Okay, Arish and Hillary will be the nominating committee. So our goal will be for you to report back in May, and you'll get, I think it was actually included with our agenda, you'll get from the bylaws who the officers are of the corporation, so you can kind of fill those in. And then you just need to ratify your chair and your vice chair nominees, and then you'll bring them in May. When we have the election, it takes effect when we go on summer recess. So that's when we would pass the torch. And certainly if anyone is interested in being the vice chair of the commission, of the board, please to let our nominating committee folks know that that you're interested, because I think they'll appreciate, that'll make their work a little easier. Hillary, for your report.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to call out a couple items that were listed in the report to update you on. Obviously happy to take questions about any of them. But the main things I think that are important for you all is the first one is the Transit Service Delivery Advisory Committee. This is an awesome acronym, TSDAC. They reconvened this month, and at the direction of the Secretary Miller, they are starting to meet to really consider DRPT funding and the merit program, which is capital and operating funds that get funneled down to jurisdictions. And so they're kind of looking at that program to see if they want to change the way it's funded. So the first meeting happened. There's not a lot to report, but I just wanted you all to know that that is happening. This group is formed. And they are going to start having conversations about this. And so we'll just keep you updated, because I do think this could play out. It could be good, it could be bad. We don't really know yet, but it could impact the way we get funding for DASH and where our other funding from DRPT goes. So we'll keep you updated on that. Secondly, the city and DASH staff met with WMATA. They are kind of kicking off their next generation transit signal priority project. They're moving forward with this. They're really looking at transit signal priority that will work for all the jurisdictions in the region. They're looking at open architecture, but I think it's really important that we're all at the table, because we also have a grant to update our transit signal priority, and we want to make sure that we are not in the place where we are with a lot of our signals right now, where WMATA is using one technology and DASH is using another, and some of our signals work for one and not the other. That's just silly. So we want to make sure that we're coordinating with them, and that we, as they provide more information, we're tracking along. If they are putting out procurement calls, that we are hopefully able to partner with them on those contracts, or at least use the same language so we can work together. So that is happening as well. And then just the last thing I want to highlight that I think is pretty important. I've mentioned probably a year and a half ago, VDOT has been doing a study on the South Side Express lane. So the 495 express lanes, basically between kind of the Mixing Bowl and across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. And they've been doing a study to see if we should install express lanes similar to the ones that we have on 395. And this is also a partnership with Transurban, which is the company that has partnered with them throughout the state on these tolling lanes. They last did engagement in October of 23. And the city wrote a letter kind of voicing some of our concerns. We definitely had public that went out to the meetings. And, you know, one of our big comments was that there's a portion of that roadway that has kind of always been held for future transit. And so that was something that we wanted to make sure, whatever options came forward, that future transit in this area was not precluded. So they originally had a no-build alternative and 4 additional concepts that they looked at. They are now bringing forward 2 concepts to continue moving through the NEPA process. They are looking at adding either 2 or 4 express lanes. So 1 or 2 lanes in each direction without taking away any general purpose lanes. And so that to us kind of goes against a lot of the transportation principles that we understand, while adding additional lanes might reduce congestion a little bit in the beginning. We know that when you add lanes, you have more cars and there's less incentive to change your behavior or take transit. And so this is pretty concerning to us. There is a public meeting. They've been held 4 public meetings, but the one in Alexandria is actually tonight at the Lee Center. Public comment is open until April 21st. So I think that the city will be certainly writing a letter. Staff has been briefing city council members on this, so I think the mayor will decide if either she is gonna write a letter or if it's gonna come from all of council. I'm not sure how they are going to handle that. But this is something that we do want to keep trekking along with. The other piece of this is that the Transportation Planning Board likely would have to adopt this into the Visualized 2050 plan, which is a vote that happens in September, and Councilman Aguirre is on that board. We're not sure that they would vote for this even if VDOT chose one of these as the preferred alternative, but because it's a public-private partnership, whether or not it's approved in that plan, I don't know that is a if they don't approve it, if that halts the process, it might slow it. But there's a lot that we still need to understand about this study. So again, they're only at the study phase, but we do have some concerns about additional traffic in the city, additional congestion at the interchanges, and the overall concept of simply adding lanes without proposing a lot of mitigation measures. I mean, I think Dash has benefited very much so from the some of the toll money from the I-395 commuter choice program. However, we don't know if a similar program would exist if they put in toll lanes here to help mitigate some of the congestion and offset some of those trips and give some of the money back to the jurisdictions to help provide transit and other options. We haven't heard of anything in place yet because it is early, but I just wanted to flag this for you all that study is happening. The engagement period is open. VDOT actually on their website has a really good kind of a virtual open house that you can go to and click around on things and provide public comments. If you have comment, I suggest that you go in and provide that, but we have reached out to civic associations and other groups, letting them know that these meetings are happening. And that is all I feel like I need to talk about.
Oh, I just wanted to know if do you want anything from the board at this point related to the 495 or?
No, I don't think we need anything from the board. I mean, the public comment period is ends on April 21st, so it's fairly soon. And I don't know, we haven't had a presentation to the board, so I don't think we need anything. But certainly, if you all want to speak up and provide your own comment, you are welcome to.
I think Matt has a question.
2 things. Yeah, I submitted a comment and I take it has to be a public-private partnership. It can't, I mean, we're going to get hot lanes, or is it possible just to get high occupancy regular lanes?
You mean having just HOV versus the toll lane?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they are considering that. I mean, in order to build it, they need somebody to fund the construction of it.
Okay.
So if this happens, it's definitely going to be in the public-private partnership with Transurban.
Okay. It just frustrates me. And, seems like 15 years ago, I was doing the same battle, and it never, the rates always became astronomical and unaffordable for, just regular commuters. But it hopefully would encourage public transportation. The second question is, do you have a new director at TNS? I heard that the current director is leaving.
The current director has left, and we will have an interim director starting on April 28th, and they will be there for about 6 months while they do a national search for a new director.
They should
Sorry, I guess I should have
you.
put that in my notes.
I don't know if you heard what Matt said at the end of his comment, but he was paying you a compliment, suggesting that.
Well, thank you. I was going to be silent on that.
Okay. Hillary, let me, I think this may be the appropriate time to just ask, following up on our Nathaniel Cartagena's comment regarding the Reed Avenue intersection. I know TNS has indicated that that improvement is feasible. Would there be reasons not to, were we to approve this, that would not be the appropriate, that you know, the city would decide not to go ahead with that intersection modification?
If we were to approve.
Well, so,
Sorry.
you know, we're looking at an alternative, you know, but it sounds like there are some in the community who are concerned about impacts on Reed Avenue, which is why that intersection was configured that way to I guess, reduce cut through traffic through the neighborhood. And is that something that, you know, because you'd have to go through a process, the city would have to go through a process basically to modify an intersection, allow for community feedback, but it sounds like there may be some concerns about that, that approach, you know. And so I just wonder kind of what might happen from there. And is it something that needs to be looked at a little more thoroughly before we approve an alternative?
Yes, I do. I think we would have to go through a process. We would probably have to go to the traffic and parking board to make that modification. And so we would have to have a public hearing, and I certainly can see some community concern with that particular change.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for Hillary? All right, thanks, Hillary. Your report.
So one more thing, I might have to hop off earlier, but would this be the appropriate time to kind of share, David? I know it's not in the agenda, the process that we talked about.
Sure, yeah, we could talk about, I wasn't sure if we wanted to do it in an email, but yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to preview it.
Yeah, so if I can I'll be super quick on this. So you all know, I don't know how this keeps creeping up on us every year. It feels very quick. Josh's evaluation is due in June. And so we all work together to set his performance expectations in the fall, so he knew how he was being evaluated. He has indicated to me that he can get a self-evaluation back to me. And then what I would like to do is share that out with you all via email. And you each signed up to write evaluations for certain sections. So what I would propose to do is to send you all an email, let you know who your partner is on those sections and send you that information, and then request that you get something back to me so we can compile it. And then I would send that out to everyone prior to the May meeting. And at that point, we could have an executive session to discuss the evaluation. And if there's any changes, we would have time before we have to adopt that in June to make those changes. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up that that's the process that I think would work best. I'm happy to take any comments on that if you all have thoughts, but if not, just keep an eye out for an email from me, and I will make sure to put some deadlines in there as well.
And Hillary, I was just thinking about this. We may need to talk about the finance element, because I don't know actually if Kendall would still be around to write that now. I don't know when she leaves the city's payroll, and Art is taking his parental leave. And so we assigned two, because we always thought, well, at least one person will be around to do the write up, but we may have to talk about how we handle that one.
Sure, and I'm happy to take on, I'll look and see if anybody had a really light thing. I know a couple of people already took on two of the evaluations, so I can look and I'm happy to partner with somebody on that as well.
Okay, thanks. And we can talk more about that.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks for staying on top of that, because yeah, you're right. It sneaks up on us every year, and it's helpful for us to have it done a little earlier in the cycle, just to make sure that we can get all our approvals over to the city.
Thank you all.
We always set aside time for other member reports. So if you're a member of a board, a commission, or a group, have anything that you want to bring forward for the benefit of the rest of us, please do so.
Yeah, so the Human Rights Commission has been grappling with DEI and its continuation within the city. I gave a presentation last month with our DEI person who's remaining on in the city. She's new, she's excellent. And I was just wondering if there's any perceived threat, and this is really to Josh more than anyone else, that we're going to be given the gauntlet on our own DEI program. And if so, I hope we object as strenuously as possible.
Any programs we have here would not be really discussed on a federal level until a couple of years from now. But I've made it clear with my team that we're not changing course on any of our priorities here, regardless of that direction. We only have one federal grant right now, which is the Lono, and the city is the recipient of that grant technically. So I don't plan to change course on anything that we're doing.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring for everyone's awareness, part of the council public hearing yesterday on the budget ad deletes, where one of the proposed revisions, and this is where council members essentially individually can propose changes to the manager's proposed budget. And there's one proposal in there that would add $1 million of funding to the schools, which is great. But it takes away half of the non-personnel budget from the Office of Climate Action. From talking to the director of that office, it doesn't appear that that would affect any of the collaborations that they have with Dash, which seems to be around some support around electrification and federal advocacy. But I wanted to just bring that to everyone's awareness because we're still in the budget process. There's a public hearing yesterday. There's still opportunities for public input and discussion directly to council members. But as you can imagine, there are a lot of people last night who are really excited about adding $1 million to the school's budget. There are also a number of us who are there opposed to cutting the climate action budget in half. So that's amidst the ongoing city budget process.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Anyone else? All right, if not, we'll move into approval of the meeting minutes for March that were included in our packet. Is there a motion? Are there any corrections to the minutes as they were presented? If not, I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Matt, or second? Second, Jesse. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Jay abstains. All right, thank you.
I abstain as well.
And Steve abstains. All right, we'll move into the financials.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will just give a shout out. There's not a lot to say about the financials because we're doing really well, but I just wanted to use this opportunity to mention that Edward Ryder is on Zoom because he's on parental leave right now, having welcomed his daughter Talia on March 27th. So congratulations, Edward. And I know he's enjoying his time at home with his growing family at this. And he was beat out by 17 days by Raymond, our chief infrastructure officer, with the birth of his son Aiden on March 10th. So I keep joking about the Dash daycare, but I just feel like this is gonna have to get pretty serious here in a minute. But anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions, and Edward has made himself available both for questions regarding the financials, but also I want to thank him publicly for, while he's been out, helping to complete the revision of the budget, because that is something that has been included in your packet tonight, and it's just a summary item, but it's going to be an action item in coming months. So welcome any questions. Again, from a fiscal perspective, our year-end projections are remaining on track. We continue to see overages in some areas, the most notable one being in maintenance. That's been a conversation we've been discussing all year. And Edward has been working in the future budget to put some resources in place to help counterbalance some of those challenges. And we've just been managing it broadly as a whole on the budget, where we can account for overages in some areas. We are managing expenses in others to maintain a balanced year end.
Jesse.
And Josh, just out of curiosity, the overage and maintenance, is that still primarily being driven by labor costs like it was previously, or is this or is it parts or something else?
It's labor and parts. I mean, staffing continues to be a challenge, if that's sort of the root of your question. And my directive to the team has been that this is a mission critical priority. So we need to do whatever is necessary to maintain our service and maintain our quality. And so we've been redirecting resources wherever it's necessary from a staffing perspective, also from a contractor perspective. And I think long-term, we will see this turn, but it's going to take some time for us to get that resolved.
Good. And given our sort of like ongoing experience learning with that, is that driving any modest alterations to the FY26 budget in anticipation of that remaining higher than we want it to be for a little while?
Yes, we've accounted for that, namely in the areas of weekends and overnight coverage, which it's become pretty clear that that's a big part of the problem, because those are the times we have the most vehicles to work on and the least people to do it. And also lack of leadership in certain hours. And so we're filling in those gaps. And so we expect that will resolve it. The other thing to keep in note is that we will have collective bargaining next fall. The maintenance wages have been an ongoing challenge for us, and we've had conversations with the labor union, and we've got some preliminary agreement on ways to bring people with higher levels of expertise in at different parts of the pay grade. But I suspect we'll engage much more vigorously in the fall about how to address compensation as a whole in maintenance. But that doesn't actually kick in from a budget perspective until, let's see, we're just finishing 26, so 27 is when that would all kick in. But in the interim, we've made adjustments ourselves.
Josh, the financial update in the packet though shows about a $500,000 positive variance on maintenance personnel, meaning it's coming in under budget, and which is like, seems like it's largely offset by the parts and services coming in over budget. So is that because the services are kind of supplementing the personnel, or what's going on there?
Yeah, contract services. So Edward's got his hand up. I'll let him chime in and speak, but and he can correct me if I'm saying this wrong, but essentially we don't have enough people to do the work, so we're paying other people to do the work. And that doesn't show up as a personnel line, but the personnel problem is still very existent. Do you want to add to that, Edward?
No, I mean, that's exactly it. So the maintenance services would reflect some of the outsourced personnel, as would professional services down in admin. Some of that is the outside services supplementing the maintenance, but that's exactly right.
Just broadly, when we have contracted workers, it just falls into one pot, which is under admin, which is where you see a lot of expenditures.
Okay. And even those two services lines, maintenance services and professional services, summed together seem to be pretty close to the amount that the total maintenance personnel line is under budget. So you starting off by indicating that this is driving a budget variance in personnel, and it doesn't seem like these numbers reflect that, even including the contract services.
So the maintenance personnel is coming in under budget partially because of vacancies that are being supplemented by the professional services and the maintenance services line. The other thing contributing to that positive variance in the maintenance personnel is the fringe benefits under maintenance personnel. You'll notice a very positive variance in that, and that's actually across the board, and that relates to the number that we had originally for insurance renewals and the actual renewals for insurance at the end of last year coming in lower than we anticipated. So those are all positive variances, essentially offsetting kind of the maintenance services line being above, being above because of the contracted services, along with professional services being above budget. It's also helping to offset the repair parts and supply overage. The repair parts and supply overage is related to exactly what it describes, but essentially a lot of the repairs, some of the engine issues, all of those things that we've had happen this year. And some of those things that are addressed in the FY26 budget, we increased that line item in particular to offset kind of the increased cost of supplies and all of that. But yeah, the positive variances in personnel are helping to offset the larger than anticipated maintenance costs related not only to outsourced personnel and but also because of increased costs and higher than anticipated repair needs.
Okay, got it. So it's like if you take out the fact that we're off on the insurance estimate, then the, you know, the problem and the personnel budget match up.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Moving to.
All right, I'll just keep the stage here. I added a graphic here because we just did a 2 weeks ago. The team did a all-day training session. It was beat into our head. Don't put a lot of words on a slide and add visuals. There's a lot of words on this slide, so I just added a visual. But that's Linnell Glover, our state champion, dash champion driver at the 2025 International Bus Rodeo in Austin, Texas. I was sad to not be able to go down there because of a schedule conflict, but Brian Roby from our team, who was our rodeo guy, was down there to cheer him on. He sort of placed in the middle. I don't remember exactly where he placed, but he wasn't first, he wasn't last. And I reflected on my experience at the International Rodeo, and I was real close to last. But anyway, I was only 20 years old at the time. So as mentioned, there's no action on this item tonight, but included in your packet, I do not have a slide for it because, again, too much information on a slide is not helpful. Packet is publicly available for the public to review as well. There is a revision to the budget which was presented to you in the fall. It is really a rebalancing of the individual line items. It is work by Edward and his team and all of our department heads to look at actual expenditures in the current year and then adjust for the future and make sure that priorities are maintained. We continue to prioritize staff development, ensuring that we're staffed appropriately and that we're accounting for these unaccounted for expenses, things particularly in maintenance. So a lot of work went into that. We're thankful to City Council for fully funding the current services request. Again, that current services request had some of the items built in that you all asked about earlier. I think, Jesse, you were kind of implying as well. And so we feel confident with that. It does not include any supplementals. Should City Council come back in the supplemental process and add a supplemental, there will be another revision to this budget strictly reflecting that by the time you adopt the budget in June. But we do need to have a public hearing for this. So you would have your public hearing and feedback on this in May. And then adopt this in June as well as the ATSP unless you adopt the ATSP next month. So happy to answer any questions about that process.
So first of all, thanks for providing the update, Josh and team, but in the materials, there's a comparison of I think what's now the revised general manager's budget compared to FY25. But the revision, like the new news at this meeting, it would be really helpful if we knew like the amounts. Like are these 4 bullets the comparison to your prior version for FY26?
Yes, this is what was tweaked since
Okay.
we talked in the fall.
Okay.
And what you're pointing out is that your comparison of the line items here is to the FY25 versus FY26. This is not a comparison of FY26 proposed to FY26 revised.
Right.
We can certainly provide that for you as a follow-up item. We're no problem doing that. Historically, the board has preferred to see a comparison of what the end goal is with FY26 compared to what we were working with FY25. Happy to do it either way, though.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if it's easy enough, I'd love if you could share that revised versus proposed. You know, I expect, given what you said, it's not going to be anything too surprising. I just would like to understand how like the new news translates into actual numbers.
Sure, we can provide that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just had a quick question on the proposed budget. I know we've had some challenges with meeting revenue targets on the advertising line, and I see that it's bumping up a little bit more for fiscal year 26 up from 2025. And so I'm just curious, like how are I know you had mentioned before some revised efforts and strategies and to kind of boost that revenue line and how it's working in this. Are we seeing, just looking at the financials, it looks like it's still a bit of a struggle. And are we seeing any like improvements or concrete things that would make us think that we'll be able to hit that?
Sure, I'm going to let Edward weigh in on that, but I think one thing that's important to remember is that is a total amount equalized across the entire fiscal year, and we changed vendors of the advertising services in this fiscal year. So the variances you're seeing in FY25, we can't compare the entire year against that. But Edward, you want to talk about how you have further looked at that number?
Yeah, absolutely. So the overall number that we put in for FY26 is based essentially on the revenue projections that we have, partially on the new contract and some of the strategies that they're doing. But I can speak to kind of our confidence in being able to achieve that versus kind of the challenges that you saw as far as receiving that revenue in FY25. As Josh just mentioned, we did change vendors midway through FY25. So we are starting to see the new vendor pick up revenue, and that we just haven't received the payments yet. So you'll start to see those trickle in. Additionally, we have secured essentially our more or less our settlement agreement with the prior vendor, because the new contract and the past contract do have a annual revenue guarantee. The prior vendor didn't meet those guarantees, and so they do have to pay the variance. One of those challenges was getting that revenue guarantee. We now have a guarantee in place that they will pay essentially the entire $163K balance remaining by the end of calendar year 2025. We just received the first installment of that payment about 3 or 4 days ago. That will be applied to FY25. But then essentially half of that installment will go to FY26 along with the new vendor. So you will see, so that essentially goes to our confidence that next year we can meet that target number. Because not only do we have the new vendor who we are seeing payments come in, but it's also going to be augmented by the revenue coming in from the settlement agreement with the old vendor, which we actually are not accounting for in our FY26 number, but that will help essentially be a positive variance to that.
And not to keep everyone on the hot seat on the revenue question, but also when we look at the charter line, I know we were 130 this year. We're proposing going up to 175, but I think our charter actuals are coming in at like 65. So, look, I'm comfortable if we want to be more ambitious with charter revenue next year. I'm just curious, like, are you guys pursuing a plan to, either solicit more customers for that or expand it? I don't want to see us set ourselves up for another $100,000 shortfall just because we know it's been a struggle to find the charter revenue. Or is this increase in anticipation of, because we know we're going to run the shuttle buses for the metro shutdown this summer or something?
Edward, you want to?
Yeah. So
go first.
The increase in the overall charter number is partially related to the kind of the refinement of the charter rates that we had. We revised our charter rates earlier this fiscal year, I believe. And so partially that reflects our average seasonal charter trends and the new rate and just kind of the increase over what we anticipate year over year. I will say we're probably not going to continue to increase it each year, but this was kind of based on conversations with our operations department, what we typically have seen over past fiscal years, and then that new rate. So that's why there's an increase from 25 to 26. I will acknowledge that in FY25, we have had slower than anticipated charter revenue. It is seasonal, and typically we do see more in the spring. So my hope is that that comes back up, but that's the juxt of where that increase from 25 to 26 comes from.
Just going back to the ad spend questions, I'm curious, the vendor that you guys use, I assume it's like an advertising agency. Do you know if you have sequential liability in your terms, meaning that you don't have to, like the advertiser or the agency rather doesn't have to pay if the advertiser who's running on your inventory hasn't paid the agency?
I believe we have that written into the contract, but I would have to consult the contract again to be sure. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
I mean, we wouldn't want it in the contract because it would, especially looking down the road to what may well be a severe downturn, your delinquencies will rise, and then advertisers will be delinquent or fail to pay the agency, and the agency could say, well, Dash, we don't need to pay you now, even though the ads ran on your inventory because we never received payment. So just something that I raised because it may be worth looking at, just thinking down the road to what the downturn may look like.
Gotcha. I thought you were asking essentially the opposite. So sorry. Yeah.
And then just just one more real quick one is on ad spend again. Is there any cyclicality in spend? Like typically you think of Q4 as being kind of an outsized portion of advertising spend globally, but just curious if that's true in this type of advertising or if it's pretty linear.
I would say based on our past contract, I know there is seasonality to it. Whether it's related to a specific quarter, I'm not entirely sure. With the new vendor, I know is going to provide us some essentially seasonal projections, especially as they get up to speed, because the contract did just start. I have not seen the newest version of that, but in connecting with our director of marketing, that's something that we can look into and come back as a follow-up response.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
And Josh, just real quick, I was curious, obviously, given the news of this week, what's our sort of like risk footprint relative to supply chain for parts, as we sort of cycle in and out of this, sort of global trade dynamic. What can we do? Is there anything we can do to have this budget be more resilient in the face of some possible disruptions?
I don't know there's much we can do. We maintain a pretty solid inventory of parts. I think the greater concern that I have is going to be parts availability at all as compared to what happens with costs. The back and forth kind of stuff that's going on right now, some people have sent us letters saying this is going to impact us, but we haven't really necessarily seen that. I don't really know. I mean, none of us have ever experienced something like this, so it's a little hard to say exactly what that will ultimately do. But again, I think we tend to struggle as an industry more with availability. Prices are already high, so again, we're trying to account for that here where we can. And I know that Edward in the past couple of fiscal years has really bumped up our maintenance parts and supplies compared to what it was years ago. Yeah, so wish I had a crystal ball.
We're related. This is the optimist form of the question. If we have a high inventory, is there an opportunity to be a seller while people are flipping out? Thin it down, close the budget gap.
Right. Well, one thing we we definitely do, and I've been pushing the team to do more of, which is to surplus sell our non-used parts, things that we no longer have a fleet for. We are also cannibalizing buses that are retired. I think Stephanie made a funny comment the other day. We were walking through the downstairs. She said, "Don't look at that bus. It's got missing things all over it." She said, "That's intentional." It's like, don't worry, it's going away. But strategies like that, I mean, we're just trying to kind of think outside the box.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're showing a chop shop. We'll sell it. We'll sell a frame with 2 wheels on it. Come pick it up, people. We're stealing it.
Stephanie might want to hang a $sign banner on that bus each time a part gets taken up.
Yeah, of course. All right, so we'll take some of these questions back that we weren't quite able to answer and bring answers back to you in May. And Edward will be back by then, I think, right? So Praveen, if we don't get you that updated comparison before then, we'll have it in May.
Do you want to share with the group there's a pending ad for Dash and what that would entail if that's funded?
Right. Gosh, now I'm going from memory, but Martin, we were just responding to an email about it. There is a line 32 partial improvement that has made the process. Do you have enough? Is it fresh enough in your memory to speak to it better than I can?
Sure. Yes, thank you for the question. Good evening, Martin Barn, Director of Planning and Scheduling. So as part of the ad delete process, there was a budget question submitted regarding the line 32 partial improvement. It was a partial of what we had originally hoped to do, but it is for increasing weekday service during middays and evenings on line 32 from 60 to 30 minutes for the western half of the route, so Landmark to Van Dorn. So, and that's, as we know, a little bit more of a more sensitive part of the route. It has a higher percentage of low income and minority population. So certainly a very worthwhile investment. I think it was $240,000. And we would be able to implement that with our existing number of operators and buses. So it's something that we could do right off the bat, hopefully by August. So we're hopeful. I know it's tied to, there's some WMATA contingency funding that would have to be allocated, but certainly we're hopeful.
And it had, I believe, 4 sign-ons, so it had a majority when it went in, so, which is very encouraging.
I think it's very clear that council would like to get line 32 up to where it needs to be, but the money's not there to do it.
This is maybe not a question for here, but I'm just curious if we know where the speed camera fines revenues are going into the city budget. Because that seems like it would be something that would be great for helping to fund transit.
I saw something about that in the documents that were sent out. I think someone had already eyed that revenue and asked some questions around it.
Because I think more speed cameras are coming, so there might be more money. So maybe an area where we think about trying to push with the city.
I think things like that are great revenue sources, including, upping just general enforcement, because it's a wild, wild west and no one seems to be enforcing anything.
You can't get fined for speeding if you're riding Dash.
That's true. It's true. Okay. We good? Any other? Okay. Just highlighting here ongoing ridership numbers. We did see a dip in February. It was pointed out in the packet that this is largely attributable to not being a leap year, as well as there being a snow event in February. 2 days can drastically change our ridership numbers. So future months though, and David was kind of hinting at this before the meeting, asking what about the 102 and 103 and whatnot. The preliminary March numbers look really good, and we do see major increases on those commuter lines, commuter oriented lines. So those numbers will be to you next month.
Yeah, and Josh explained perhaps that our February meeting may have fallen later, or our March meeting may have fallen later, because we were able to have the February numbers in March, but then Josh explained that you were still working to finalize those. I think especially we want to know at the point that we're exceeding the pre-pandemic ridership on that route, not that we have budget resources, but I do wonder if the city ever were to do something that, just sort of overall economic relief package, that I think this is something that we probably should be saying from a transit standpoint would be helpful. So that's why I really want to make sure we get some visibility around that when that occurs. And I think maybe it already has, but and the line 35 as well, which you had included last month too, would be helpful, since that goes to the Pentagon to know what's going on there.
Okay. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to welcome Cato Carter to the podium. He is our Director of Safety and Security here at Dash. He's going to do a departmental overview. This is the first time I think you all are hearing from him, as well as talk about some of their strategies. Did you have a question?
Yeah, before Kato gets on, we're gonna skip over you being on the cover of a national bus publication. Include, like, is that intentional? That we're not gonna talk about that? Is that-
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, thank you. I don't know. I guess I didn't think about that. Yes, we were featured on Busline magazine. Very proud of the team for putting together that article. Frankly, our marketing and public engagement team worked hard to get that attention to us and help us in that process of putting that article together. But yeah.
And I just want to say to my fellow board members, if you have not yet taken the time to look through the PDF, the article is excellent, but the publication itself is a delight. Like those are the most interesting ads I have seen for anything in a long time. Yeah, right.
You don't finish.
All right, Cato, it's all you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cato Carter. I'm the Director of Safety and Security here at Dash. Here tonight to talk to you all about Safety and Security Department, introduce our strategic initiatives, kind of tell you a little bit about what we do here. This is high level. I could be here till tomorrow morning talking to you all about this, but I don't think any of you want that. So we'll get to it. Before we get into the org chart, anything about data, regulations, or anything like that, I kind of want to talk to you about what is safety and what is security. So if you imagine for a moment that we're all on a road trip, right? We're in the car. The seatbelt that you put on, the airbags in the car, that's safety, right? So say on this road trip, you stop at a rest stop, go in to use the restroom, buy some overpriced, questionably aged snacks from the vending machine. Someone wants to take that car. Well, the locks on the car, the alarm system, that's security. So a better way to look at it is safety is a protection from unintentional harm, something an accident essentially that you didn't expect to happen, whereas security is a protection from intentional harm, right? So this is our team. You got me there at the top, Director of Safety and Security. Reporting up to me is Darren Smothers, our Safety and Security Manager. And then reporting to Darren is Khadijah Crowder, our Safety and Security Specialist, and Naeem Mahfouz, other Safety and Security Specialist, who's my emotional support back there today. But while this is our official org chart, the cool thing about safety and security is that it's also all of our staff, all of you even, what people are reporting to us, how people engage in safety and security on a day-to-day basis. So it's not just us. The concept is decentralized safety, whereas throughout the whole organization, everyone has responsibility to help further the cause of safety and security. So what do? We have three buckets of what safety and security does here at Dash. The first one being regulatory and compliance. And you see on the right there, the three of the biggest regulatory entities that kind of help guide us in this area. First, you got the Federal Trade Administration, FTA. They guide us with our drug and alcohol program. They have guidance on pre and post-trip inspections, our agency safety plan, as well as some regulations for maintenance on, making sure that the equipment that is out there on the street is properly maintained. We move over to TSA, the Transportation Security Administration. That's the security training that all of our employees have to undergo within 48 hours of becoming an employee. And then there's also reporting that we have to TSA, not just for them to track trends with Dash, but also all of the transit agencies in this region. If they notice a trend that starts here and spreads throughout, they let everyone know so that we all can be mindful of what that is. Then finally, there's OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. they're looking at things like the operators having reflective vests when they get off the bus so that they can be seen. And especially down in maintenance, making sure that they are properly trained, that they have the proper PPE, and that their safety data sheets are up to date so that the technicians and staff down there know what kind of chemicals that they're working with. Then we have response. So with response, this is post-event review. An operator gets into an event, we review that and have a slew of actions that I'll get into later that follow from that. Our workers' comp process that falls under the Department of Safety and Security, as well as our coordination with other departments. Again, like I said, safety and security is throughout. So if there's something that we notice in maintenance, maybe we could talk to marketing to help put out a maintenance campaign to understand what the issue is and how to correct it. And finally, we have prevention. With prevention, we have our safety and security policies. We have operator coaching. A lot of these things that you hear me say will kind of tie in really closely with the training department. Safety and security and training are really, we walk in lockstep. So some of these things you hear me say about training are us, but also the training department. And then we have a method for near miss and reporting hazards for our operators. So if they're out on the street and say they almost take a mirror off or almost hit a car, they can report that and say, hey, in this area is kind of tight. I almost hit my mirror. Nothing really happened, but maybe that's something you want to look at in the future. And we take those and we analyze them, because if we catch it there, we can prevent an event happening in the future. So you might have heard me say the word event a couple times. What is an event? An event is any accident or incident that happens on route that disrupts route. That's basically, that's it in a nutshell. We have two metrics or two ratings that we give events. There's really three, but for the purposes of this, I'm just gonna go over these two. One is preventable. What that means is there anything that the operator could have done to avoid getting into that event? And this is not fault. This doesn't mean that you get a ticket for whatever it is. It's, can the operator be discounted from their actions to contributing to the event or inaction? And non-preventable is the opposite. Nothing the operator could have done. Think of someone rear-ending the bus when they're stopped at a light. That's it. So it's not a safety and security presentation without a little look at some numbers. Data with safety and security is ever evolving. This is an area that we are building out and improving upon month over month, year over year. But at a very high level, what you're seeing here is our data for 2022, 2023, and 2024. The total there is non-preventable and preventable together. And then the darker squares at the bottom are our preventables. What we're really looking at there is that it stays pretty even across year over year. The slight uptick in 2024, we've really pushed for our operators to be more communicative with us about events that they're getting into, and stressing the fact that the repercussions for that are not punitive. We're here to make them a better operator in the future. So that's getting that messaging out, is helping them tell us more, and we have that two-way knowledge exchange that helps us reduce these numbers in the future. Go ahead.
Do you want questions as you go? Is that?
Sure.
Okay, great. So a couple questions on this. How does this benchmark against peer services in the region? And do we have our own internal metrics that we are trying to hit? Like, are we trying to keep these below 50% or 30%? Sort of just give me some context for what these numbers are.
Yeah. So benchmarking against other agencies, we do look at those. I don't have that in front of me here. But the way we do business is so different amongst all the different agencies that it gives you an idea of what those numbers are, but it tells you something but doesn't tell you something at the same time. And internally, Right now, what the FTA wants to see is your own metrics. How are they improving year over year? How are they staying stagnant year over year? So for us right now, that 40% is what we're looking at each year as a kind of our baseline.
I was gonna ask a similar question, but I'm gonna turn it into a comment, which is just that I know there's a lot of variation between agencies, but I feel like it's important to know and important to want to know, like, are you bottom quartile or top quartile or somewhere in the middle, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so, once things kind of get blended, it's still possible to know, where you kind of sit
Absolutely.
among the peer group.
Yeah, we have a pretty solid relationship with PRTC, as well as we're building one out with WMATA as well. So we're sharing some stuff across large and similar size to build that out.
Is there an industry clearinghouse for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you don't just
the
have to
name is
share
escape-
bilaterally.
Correct. The name's
Okay.
escaping me at the moment, but yes, we do have one. Yep.
How do the bus drivers, how are they encouraged to feel like they won't be disciplined for a preventable accident in reporting it?
It's how we communicate with them. My team does a really good job of when the operator gets into the event, there's immediate outreach to them to say, hey, this happened. Here's how we're going to help you get better moving forward. You're not in trouble. Like I said earlier, like we're here to make you a better operator so that we can avoid you having a similar situation in the future.
So it's an active corrective action type of program?
Yep.
And is there recidivism after, well, you're probably too new to figure out if the program works or not, but generally those are great programs. And it's a win-win for the public, you, our insurance carrier,
Yeah.
and the driver themselves. So, good.
So when an event happens, how do we respond? Please forgive my attempt at making those little buses, but I think the idea, is there. So an event happens, we review that event. What that entails is the footage from the bus that was in the event, the operator statement, supervisor statement, any witness statements that we might have. And then from that review, we do retraining. And what I say we, the training department, what that retraining is what did you do based off of this review? How can we fix it? Then my team does an analysis of that. And that's where we really determine, are we looking at a one-off? Do we have a trend going on here? Are there similarities between other events that we're seeing where we need to increase awareness? Are we seeing a lot of side swipes? Okay, well, we need to put more awareness out there that operators need to pay more attention while they're driving, scanning their mirrors, lane placement, things like that. And we put that in place. And that goes to the last point, communication. Whatever comes out of that analysis, we communicate with the operators. Flyers and mailboxes, talking to them face to face, TV, bulletin boards that show whatever the results are of what we found from that. Remember this, this bus line is going to come back here in a second. What the FTA, well, let me back up. What me personally, as a former operator, my team, Josh and Dash as a whole, and the FTA really, really, really focus in on and do not want to happen is this right here, operator assaults. This is something that the FTA constantly puts out memos on to make sure that agencies are doing the best that they can to keep our operators safe while they're out there on the street. To that end, there are 3 areas where Dash has put in some mitigations to help prevent these. The operator-focused protections, where that starts is de-escalation training. Our training department puts on a fantastic de-escalation training program because what we found is that interaction between the operator and the passenger getting on the bus That's where it starts. If the operator has the tools to take something from kind of hot to cold, then there's no assault, no potential for an assault down the line. Also, as you can see in that picture right there, they're the operator driver barriers on that every bus has as well. Moving on to technology and infrastructure and kind of staying in the area where that picture is, there's also a panic button in the bus that changes all of the signage on the bus to let people on the outside know that the operator's in trouble. We have our two-way radio system where the operator can talk to our operations control center to let them know that they have something going on. All of our buses have AVL GPS on them, so we know where they are if something is happening. And then we have the camera system on all of our buses. Those cameras also allow us to have live look-in. So operator calls in, hey, somebody's trying to assault me on this bus. Our operations center can look into the bus right then and there and see what is happening so that they can communicate that information to our first responders that are trying to show up and help the operator. And then our rider facing measures, we have our dash passenger code of conduct, as well as some, not all, we're working to get it on all the buses, but our buses have a notification on them that let the riders know that they are being monitored. That's kind of a psychological trick, because if you know that you're on camera, you're less likely to do something versus not being watched at all.
Just a quick question, sorry. So are all communications to first responders or to police handled through the operations center, or are drivers ever encouraged to contact directly?
If there's something where the operator needs immediate assistance, they can contact them themselves. If there's a situation where talking on the radio would cause them to, get assaulted, or they need to evacuate from the bus because of what the situation was, then we encourage them to use their best judgment onto when to use the radio and when to contact via their own cell phone.
Okay. And can you please just give like a little bit of a sense of what that process is for the operations center then to determine whether panic or emergency that's reported by an operator then gets communicated to first responders, or how that determination is made?
Yeah, so sometimes what the operator initially says is like immediate, like, okay, this is an emergency situation. We need to send out EMS or police to that. But the operations center is taught to ask follow-up questions as well as that live look-in to get information from the operator. Do you feel safe? Or do you feel secure? And then looking at the cameras to say, oh, wait, I see what's going on here. I need to call the police.
Okay, thanks.
With respect to the surveillance, is it all the time or only when there's an incident?
So the cameras are always on. When there is an event, we pull that footage after the fact to look at it, or like the live look-in if there's something going on.
And is it overwritten?
Yes, I don't know I don't know.
And,
I don't
and
remember.
Is it monitored by us or is it a third party?
It's us. It's
okay.
us. Yeah, I don't remember the how long it is. I believe it's 30 days.
Yeah, it's like 4 to 6
Yeah.
months.
And you wouldn't give it to like an ICE agent or anything like that without a warrant?
What's that?
You wouldn't get, like, if someone thinks there's an undocumented person who needs to go away.
Oh, gotcha.
You wouldn't cooperate with them because it may discourage people from riding the bus.
Yeah, yeah. So we're actually in the process of developing our internal procedure for that. Right now, it's kind of, we can put a phone call over to Josh to say, what are we thinking on this one? But we're developing with our HR a policy for handling those situations, because it is a reality.
And Josh, you may want to call the Office of Human Rights, who I know you've got contacts with, because they're developing something along those same lines. So
just out of curiosity, is that developing something just in terms of reporting to ICE or, immigration services, or is it for all reporting this type of information to law enforcement?
Well,
purpose?
I mean, well, the law enforcement compilation of data really comes from the sheriff's department side, but it's more of a know your rights for riders and how to respond for companies to sort of, know the difference between different warrants that they have to comply with versus regular warrants, which, they can just tell them to pound salt. So yeah.
Interesting. That's cool.
yeah.
Thanks.
I'm jumping to the next slide, but on the data related to these operator assaults is the 2025, is that calendar year or fiscal year?
Calendar.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's
Yep.
pretty early.
Yep. So with all of those there, what does that mean? It means this. We've seen a year-over-year reduction in our operator assaults. So something else to note about assaults, that doesn't necessarily mean that people are, fist fighting each other. This could be something as simple as someone throwing their drink on an operator. That's still assault. So all of that gets recorded and evaluated.
Related again to the, to the monitoring technology, basically being on camera again, and the privacy issues. Are there any specific terms relative to the operators agreement on, them being on camera, them being recorded while they're working? Has that been an issue?
Well, there's a stipulation in the collective bargaining agreement regarding when and how video footage can be used in the terms of discipline. But our workforce loves us having this video and the way we use it, because it is our people sitting next to them virtually helping. I mean, I've seen them using it to give them directions when they're lost, or there's a major accident in front of them and the driver is calling for help and the control center is saying, okay, this road you're coming up on, you're going to turn left, that kind of thing. From a policy perspective about how we manage the use of the data, that there are policies around data integrity and the use and the purposes of it. Again, largely driven when it's personnel actions, it's driven by our collective bargaining agreement. Is that your question?
Yeah, it's like I'm at work, I'm being recorded. It's there to protect me, but there's situations in which I might be uncomfortable because of that, or it might be used in a way that's not just to protect me. Has that issue come up? How is it resolved relative to the operators and their CBA?
Well, I don't know that it has come up in the context of that they've taken issue with a particular situation. Previously, early on, there was pressure to remove the live look-in capability altogether. And we fought that very, very hard. And our workforce said to us, we want that. So there is a broad perspective in some situations about this concept that surveillance is used in the wrong ways. We take that seriously, but ultimately here at Dash, we have found it the benefits of it have far outweighed the negatives. And we're in a surveillance society. Everyone's got a cell phone, everyone's recording you, everyone's looking at what you're doing. We're doing it for the right reason, to support you. And so we try to make sure people get that in their head when they're trained here and when they work with us.
It's a mandatory subject of bargaining, so the union agreed to it, just because it's there. But if there were any changes that either increasing or even decreasing, they would still have to go with the coach.
So how do we respond to these? So we have 10 field supervisors that are out scattered across the ASHA service area. The field supervisors are trained in that same de-escalation and then some on how to come into a situation that's already escalated to the point where they're needed. Again, we have 8 to 10 cameras on each bus, 14 on an articulated bus. We have that coordination again between the drivers, dispatch, our field supervisors, police and EMS. And then we also have our coverage from the Virginia Transit Liability Pool, VTLP, which is unique because it's a transit specific pool. So they understand our unique issues that we may have, that we may encounter. And so in the event of an event, these are the 4 areas where we try to make sure that operators are completely covered and taken care of. And then that little train of buses shows up again. Just like a preventable or non-preventable, it gets reviewed. If the operators' de-escalation techniques, for instance, were not up to par, they get some retraining. We analyze it. Are we seeing a lot of assaults in a particular area? All right, what do we do about it? And then we communicate that out to our operators to make sure that they know that we are trying to help take care of them. Oh, go ahead.
So I remember you guys like presented to us like the staff survey and people feeling unsafe was like a high percentage. So any update on that? If you're saying that assaults are low, then why are our operators feeling unsafe?
Staff survey.
It was a couple months ago.
Yeah, I think she's referring to that's the survey you did, Martin, a little over a year ago. So it feels like yesterday, doesn't it? I mean, you can weigh on this, Cato, if you have perspective, but I do know in our conversations and sort of what we've been learning from people is that feeling safe versus being assaulted are 2 very different things. And the feeling of safety, I think, definitely is, I would like to think it's improving, but I think that it's largely driven by the crowds of people and sort of the people that are on the bus, and the situations that might occur around them. But that is a part of our engagement process to better vet and understand how we answer for that. And as you may recall, more recently than that survey, Yvonne and Stephanie presented about employee engagement. And since then, we conducted our engagement survey, and we're now working through the results of that and then putting the pieces in place to have those conversations. So I would say it's also a little bit early for us in the context of having those specific conversations to fully understand and align that sentiment with what's the reality versus the perspective. You know, you can show a lot of data that says things are really good, but to your point, if people don't feel safe, it's coming from somewhere. And I do think that we've got some work to do there, but I think that's going to really tie into this engagement process that we're just getting kicked off in a really strong way.
But will we get to see that results, the survey results that you guys are doing, this a breakdown of that?
Yeah,
once you're done with this, like May meeting,
there's
June
yes,
meeting?
there are future presentations around all of that and all that work. It's a huge project for us.
Okay, so this summer, this fall, timeline?
Well, certainly not, I don't think within the next 2 meetings, because your next 2 meetings are totally booked up. But yes, probably this fall. We'll start the cycle again as far as what we're talking about in our board calendar. But no, you're definitely going to hear more about it for
Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah.
And to Josh's point about the feeling coming from somewhere, like I mentioned earlier, like this is an industry-wide phenomenon, that the operator assaults, and there are places that the agency is trying its best, but there are more violent areas that the operators may be operating in. And when they hear that, they see it on the news, it kind of ramps up this anxiety to be out there on the street. And that's where my team's job comes in, of communicating it to operators that we are doing the most we can to take care of you.
You know, Jasha's question made me think about the operator slide, the operator assault slide. And I think everything you mentioned suggested that it was really about physical assaults. And I was kind of wondering, and it feeds into the question of safety, this issue of like verbal assaults, and if those are reported, particularly things that may make an operator put them in a place of fear or make them fear for their safety.
Yeah, if a verbal assault rises to the level where an operator does feel that, they do report it. You're kind of revealing the third
Oh, got it.
of
Okay.
the ratings we call not graded. That's where something happens, it disrupts service,
Got it.
but it's not preventable or non-preventable. And that would fall into that category. Those are recorded. We have what's called the exact name is escaping me, but we have a way for operators to say, hey, I no longer want this person to be on my bus. And we follow that whole procedure involving APD to keep that person off that bus and make that operator feel safe.
That's great. And I guess internally, how do you train operators to kind of similar as you do in terms of like reporting preventable accidents, but how do you train them to feel comfortable or have the sort of psychological safety to say, oh yeah, you know what, I don't like this, or I don't feel comfortable, I don't like what someone said to me, I should feel confident in reporting that even though it may disrupt service or something else?
As part of the de-escalation training, so if they get into that back and forth, when to let the operator, let Doc know, as well as oh God, I just completely blanked on what I was saying there. There's that, as well as what we do with our communication to them, constantly being out there and communicating. We have quarterly safety and security meetings where we go over events like that. We show real life examples that even happen on Dash to indicate, hey, this is what you do in that scenario, that kind of thing.
Okay. Thanks.
Before you go on, Cato, I just wanted to, you made me think of something else that I've learned, and that's not specific to this conversation, but more broadly to the question of how do people feel and how do they tell us? We worked incredibly hard to get people to respond to the engagement survey. By the way, it's the first one that's been done in 40 plus years at Dash. So it was a very new thing. There was a lot of skepticism around it. For the common reasons, which is, what are you going to do with this? How are you going to use this? Why are you asking me? You're not going to do anything with those kinds of things. But separately from that is that when we have had situations in the past, we have to recognize that there are cultural aspects among our workforce. Our workforce is incredibly diverse. And what we've run into in the past is that there are some cultures that frown very much on reporting things. And they also are very fearful of retaliation against their family, against their kids. Their kids may ride the bus, may go to school at ACPS. And so our drivers on the bus, and they have anxiety around something that's going on. We try to work with them, or they've been assaulted. I mean, we've even had cases where we had driver assaults where we wanted to go ahead and push forward with charges, and the driver just was not comfortable doing that. So I think another aspect of not only just talking to them about understanding what it is that's causing them to feel that way, but continuing, and it's going to be a slow process. It's not going to be 6, 12 months, 2 years even. I think it's going to be a multi-year process where we gradually get people to understand how they can talk to us here at Dash, how we're going to respond to that information and what we're going to try to do with it, and what their role is, and what path they want to take with that, and helping them to navigate that. But again, somewhat related to this, but not, it just made me think of, and it really struck me when, I don't remember who it was or when it was, but I was hearing about this assault that occurred, and I was very, very upset about it. And I wanted to see us go after the people who assaulted them as much as we could. And the driver simply was not interested in doing it. And it was entirely cultural. It was entirely, that's not what we do. I'm not doing it. They will take revenge on my family, and I'm not comfortable doing that. And I had to go home dealing with that. And I took that very personally, and I know my team did too. So we're trying very hard. And I think it will be a gradual process, both with asking for the information, getting the information, but also navigating sort of the different ways that people react to this stuff. So editorial comment there. So it's Cato's group.
Yeah. And to Josh's point, I wish I could have in hindsight, I wish I had made that last little pseudo bus there very, very, very large, because that is the biggest thing that we try to do is communicate with our operators to help them understand how all of this works.
Who wins the bingo card if you guess the most the area we have the most trouble with from our engagement survey? He just told you what it was. Hint, hint. Communication. It's the #1 area. Right? Am I right, Yvonne, or did I? That's
All right, that was a lot of accidents, incidents, and assaults. So let's get into some positive stuff. We don't want the operators to just be focused on, the negative aspect of what they're out there doing. So we do administer safe driving awards to our operators, and these were just recently redesigned for 2024. Starting at 1 year for safe driver, that's 1 year of safe driving, all the way up to 25+ years of safe driving, in 5-year increments from there. And the numbers you see beside that are the number of our operators that achieved that milestone. So we want operators to know that we see them doing well, as we're not just coming to talk to you because you hit that car. We also want to pat you on the back because you didn't hit that car.
Cato, that's 144 out of 200, right? About 200 operators.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of operators with safe driving awards.
Especially the 25+. I find that one to be the most amazing out of these.
Is there a monetary or non-monetary award that goes along with this?
So we are evaluating the feasibility of that. For this initial rollout, there was not one, but it's something that we're evaluating to see, how much, how often, which ones, that type of thing.
There's a patch they can put on their uniform.
Correct. Yep. So strategic initiatives moving forward for the future. We've got technology, obviously. The technology that we have, we want to find out what is out there that's better than what we have. Think about moving from a Model T to a Tesla. That's how we want to advance the technology that's on our buses. Yeah, maybe I should have picked a different car company. Rivian, there we go. To that end, we go to different expos, conferences that talk about what's out there, what vendors showing us what they have. They approach us to tell us, hey, I think you'd be interested in this particular thing. And then we run pilot programs for those. We have a demonstration grant that we use for our Q-Straight quantum securement that's on 5 of our buses, that someone shows up on the bus with a wheelchair mobility aid can secure that person by themselves without any interaction from the operator. That was from a demonstration grant, as well as vendors allowing us to demo their product to see if it fits in our applications. We currently have a digital mirror pilot that's out there. Right now, they can't replace the actual mirrors on the bus. There will come a day when that is reality. These perform much better in low light, inclement weather, better field of view, that type of thing. Data, as I mentioned before, we constantly want to improve how we gather data, analyze data, utilize data, what technology can help us with our data. And then finally, once again, communication. Better ways to communicate with our operators, more frequent communication with our operators, because at the end of the day, these are who we're actually on the journey with. That road trip that I had you think about in the beginning, this is who we're actually riding with on a daily basis. Our community there, our staff, our admin personnel. Our job as safety and security is to make sure that everyone that interacts with the Dash bus is safe and secure to the best of our current abilities and our future abilities. So that's all I got. Any questions?
I'll ask just one about, we talked a lot about assaults with operators and sort of then the environment of perceiving safety. What about assaults between passengers that occur on buses?
Yep.
And do
So-
we track that as well in our
We
data?
do. That's that non-graded that I mentioned earlier, that interrupts service, but it doesn't really involve the operator other than the operator reporting that, hey, these two people are fighting on my bus.
So is there de-escalation training that they're provided? You talked about kind of interactions with them, and I think about certainly back in the days when we had fairs, that was probably a source of a lot of
Mhm.
friction. Do I enforce this? Do I not?
Mhm.
But in terms of just dealing with, I've ridden buses recently that have a lot of our students
Yeah.
on them, and they act maybe in a way that's just natural for them, but different than maybe the environment I would want on a bus. But in terms of what you tell drivers of how do we, your bus, you have to be able to operate it safely. What do they kind of do to ensure comfort of passengers? So.
Kind of with there was an earlier question about when to use the radio versus the phone. It falls along those lines. Like if the operator sees an opportunity where they can use that verbal judo to kind of break that situation apart, we encourage them to try that. However, their safety comes first. If we don't tell them to try to get in between people and break it up or anything like that, just get on the radio, say, I've got 2 or more people fighting on this bus, please send some assistance. And that could be the supervisor showing up to use their level of de-escalation. An authority figure shows up with a radio and some keys, that can help break the situation up. And if they can't, then they escalate it up to APD.
Okay. And then what about things like just language? A lot of just very foul language or things that would make some people uncomfortable. What should an operator say anything about that, or
foul language? Well, again, that would depend on, are
well,
you do
talking
you have-
about like continue like somebody
Yeah,
was
like
sort of on a long screed event at a very loud volume.
Gotcha.
So it's not
Operator comfort, we allow some discretion there, but again, if it gets to the level where it's disrupting other people and themselves, they can call that in and say, hey, I've got this person being disruptive on my bus. If they can't disarm it themselves with the techniques that we teach them, again, supervisor shows up to help them out.
Okay. I mean, I just think about that in terms of we carry a lot of younger people. We're going to likely be carrying more as we look to efficiencies and just making sure that, that everyone kind of feels comfortable on the buses. We have a code of conduct that's followed, but, understanding kind of what needs to be done to maintain the appropriate kind of decorum on the bus for everybody, especially if we have crowded vehicles. We're all kind of on top of each other too, but appreciate that. So do you track those? You mentioned that you do have metrics on those. What do you track, and are you seeing trends there that might influence some of the answers we got on feelings of safety on the bus?
That's what we look for. Is we look for, where did this happen? How often does it happen? Is it a particular line, a particular location, like Bradley Shopping Center is an example. We saw more and more complaints, more and more APD calls happening to this area. So we evaluate it. We have discussions with APD. We have discussions with the operators to help put some things in place to kind of ratchet that heat down.
Okay, but is it trending in the right direction? Because you're encouraging also operators to be more proactive in reporting things as well. So are you seeing positive trends in your data? Okay. Thank you.
I would love to see some of those statistics if they're available, particularly broken down. I think David raises a really interesting point about passenger versus other passenger altercations and distinguishing that from, assaults of nonverbal assaults on operators. It would be interesting at some point to just get that information and see what it comes like. Thanks.
Okay.
Cato, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Cato. Just before I hand it back over to you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to give a shout out to Cato and his team. They are small but mighty, and something I wanted to provide as context for a number of board members who weren't here. So I joined JASH in 2017. There was no dedicated safety and security department. In 2019, we hired one individual, that being Stephanie, to start building a safety and security department. Then the pandemic hit. She spent 2 years managing the pandemic response. So in reality, there's only been a couple of years where we've actually had a dedicated department. The data is very new. I hear a lot of you talking about data, and I share your desire for it. I just want to temper some expectations around it because this is something that's been a priority of ours to build out, but it didn't exist. I mean, frankly, we had a training manager who did a little bit of safety stuff. But basically, when you think about the volume of training we're doing, wasn't really able to focus on it. And so we have a remarkable team for what they're doing, supporting a 24-hour operation with basically 4 people pulling video. I also want to commend them for supporting the community and the police department. They often come and ask us to find video for them. And in that process, it can take hours of time. There's an incredible amount of resources. The technology has come a long way, and we've, strategically, we're talking about technology. We're looking strategically about what's the future of our, again, the surveillance conversation. It's still a physical process. You have to find the bus, pull the drive, hook it up to a computer, find the time and place where it happened, download that data. Then you have to get the drive back to the bus. You have to figure out which drive is in which bus, because sometimes that might change. We have a lot of opportunity here. And I just wanted to say that for what they've got going, they've been really trying hard to bring us an understanding of what's going on out there in the service that we provide. And it's going to continue to be a priority of mine.
Yeah, what big takeaway for me was it's impressive the capability that you've built, and it looks like there's a great team in place. But I think the event reporting, I'm sure there's an industry standard where it's more of an event rate per revenue mile per something, right?
Yep.
And I think it's like really important to think about it, not just in terms of the total number of events or incidents, but what's the rate? How does the rate look over time? Not just the total number over time. How does that compare to peers in the industry to know, is this a good number? Can we make it better?
Yeah, and that's where I'm saying we share the same focus and priorities. I think the struggle for us has been us actually having the data ourselves. Cato has managed to come up with quite a bit of data just up until maybe the last 2 years. Trackit came into play. We didn't even have a centralized system for this. So we're basically, for all intents and purposes, brand new at this data. And so, but those metrics and those comparisons against other systems, and also looking at systems that are comparable to us, to your point, I think it's going to be really important as we continue to move down this road.
And Josh, I know we're running late, so I'll just sort of leave this as a follow-up item for the future. But your comment just now about sort of the amount of labor that goes into working with the police department, I'd be really curious to know, are we doing that as a courtesy? Do we have an MOU with them? Like, just kind of how formalized is that relationship, especially if it's a cost to us in terms of manpower hours? I'd like to just understand that better and kind of, what that partnership could look like in a way that's more beneficial to us, candidly.
Yep. Money comes from the same pot for both of us.
I hear you, but
yeah.
budget's balanced differently.
But yeah, I mean, and that's part of the conversation. That's part of what we're looking at in the context of if we're going to continue to take on more student transportation, what kind of resources do we need to potentially have added in-house to help support that added? Well, I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Thank you for a great conversation tonight. We've come to the end of our agenda. We will meet again May 14th, 5:30 p.m. That's the City Hall meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Jesse, second, Ajayesha. All in favor? Aye. Have a good night.